Can a hardware and a consumer electronic company selling into the US be born in India? Well, yes, you heard it right. That's the company that we're going to double down on today with the founder, Raghav Gupta from Posha. Hi, Raghav. Welcome to the Double Down Pod. And what we are discussing today seems to be getting into the kitchen. And I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. We will obviously talk a little about your journey, and now you're in Silicon Valley. You're joining us from where right now?
I'm calling from the San Francisco Bay Area right now.
Awesome, awesome. So Raghav, I think where we can start this conversation from, and I was thinking about our time that we met in 2018, way back then when you were building out of a lab in Bangalore. I think it was in the Kurmangala area or Indranagar, and you were just a few people, and I felt that there was so much energy in the room, but I only saw components distributed all along. I didn't know what was coming together. So I want to trace back to the time when you actually thought about Posha and what you wanted to do. And tell me a little bit about that journey, like right from the very beginning.
So me and my co-founder Rohin started Posha, formerly known as Nimble, out of his parents' uh, house. So we used to work out of the lower level of the house, whereas they used to live on the upper levels, and that it was basically the equivalent of a cliched Silicon Valley startup garage, but in New Delhi. So in New Delhi at the time, Rohin and I had just graduated from college. We had just stopped operating our wind turbine company. At the time, we were
Wind turbine, that's
trying to,
interesting.
yeah, so at the time, we were trying to electrify rural India. 20% of India had no access to electricity. And we thought that a developing country deserved to have power. We thought at the time that India's electricity needs could be fulfilled by wind. And so we were developing small wind turbines that could be installed in rural areas to harness energy from low gusts of wind. That unfortunately couldn't work out because solar took on, and and we couldn't compete with solar. And so both of us decided we did not want to take up jobs from college, and we started thinking about what we should do next. Whatever it is that we wanted to do next, we made sure that, you know, basically we had set internal criteria for us to decide, basically to evaluate the myriad ideas that we might have. One of the criteria for us was that um, the business that we intend to tackle this time around should solve a problem that we have personally experienced. B, the problem we should solve should be deep tech in nature. And C, the problem we pick up next should have potential globally and not just in India. And let me deep dive into each one of those things.
Got it.
When
Got it.
we
But
started
just before you kind of go into that area, like this is way back in like 2015, 2014. What time frame is this?
2017-ish,
2017. And this was,
8 years
India was
back.
still a software country, right? Like we were talking about software a lot. And you're thinking about wind turbines and this other deep tech startup. Like what was the genesis? Like were you the two loners in the college, or were there many more people like you?
Good question. I think we could be considered loners in college, if I have to be stupidly honest.
Okay.
In fact, I did not hang out with my college buddies a lot. I used to go to Rohin's apartment, who used to study in a different college altogether.
Okay.
And likewise, Rohin did not hang out as much with his classmates. He used to hang out in his college's, uh, uh, lab. So I used to visit Rohin there. Rohin used to come from here. In fact, when during graduation, I had low attendance because I was spending all this time with Rohin building stuff.
Nice.
So, and every one of Rohin's friends sat for placements in college, but both of us did not even sit for placements. So it is pretty much an accurate observation on your part. Uh,
Nice, nice, nice. So coming back to that story, you were then figuring it out together, some of these deep tech ideas. And so the wind turbine idea came from where? I'm very curious to understand because this is like completely different territory.
Correct. So, wind turbine idea came about based on our own expertise. So, Rohin, my co-founder, is a mechanical engineer by training, and he had taken keen interest in CFD, which is computational fluid design. So he could intricately design the blades of wind turbines and know um, how they should be designed so as to generate maximum amount of power while at the same time cutting through wind very efficiently. Whereas I was an electrical engineer, and even in that I was more focused on the power electronic side of things,
Got it.
and not VLSI and miniature electronics, but on the energy hungry machinery.
Got it.
So I could focus on the turbine and the energy, and he could focus on the blades, and it seemed like it was a good marriage of our skill sets. And then both of us had some inkling of having some social impact. The kind of families we came from, we always wanted to do something for the world that moves it in a positive direction.
Right.
And so the wind energy idea was not really an idea that was designed to make us a lot of money, but just to solve a large problem for India.
Understood. Understood. And then how did you transition to this story in the kitchen?
Right. So when we realized that this wind turbine idea could not work out, I told you there were three things that were important to us. While shutting down the wind turbine idea, we realized that one of the big reasons we had to shut it down was because we did not understand the absence of electricity. We had not experienced this problem of not living of electricity impoverishment, and so we weren't our own customers. So we
Understood.
wanted to make sure this next problem was something that we had first-hand experience, because then we could solve it well. B, to your point, we had noticed that India was a software nation. There were The first wave was India exporting services. We had the TCSs and the Wipros and the HCLs of India exporting all kinds of services to countries overseas, and we were generating a lot of revenue through that. Then came the new wave of software as a service startups. There was ChargeBee, there was Freshdesk, there
Right.
were all these other software product companies, Zoho, that were exporting not just services but real software products out in the world,
Right.
and making money sitting out of India. But we as a nation um, were not known for you know any kind of physical tangible goods. There was no Apple equivalent from India. There was no Sony equivalent from India. Sony is
Right.
from Japan. There
Right.
was no Dyson equivalent from India. Dyson is from Europe. So
Right.
every continent, right? There's Europe, Dyson. There's America, which is obviously America, and then there's Asia.
Right.
Has its foot in the door, but India has no foot in the door when it comes to physical tangible products. And we said we should not be known. India should not be known for cheap labor and inferior quality of goods. We should be known for high quality of products as well. And so we wanted to build A for the world, and B, we wanted to build something tangible, which was like deep tech, something that had deep technological moats and couldn't easily be copied by minds all over the world.
And in a way, I'm
And
thinking that you're also looking at maybe leveraging what you were learning and what you were passionate about, and making sure that you're kind of dealing in the same broader area rather than just like switching careers. Like, so there are a lot of people who would do mechanical engineering but will have nothing to do with mechanical engineering for the rest of their lives, right?
correct.
So I think there is a little bit of a continuity factor that you guys probably thought about because I think you were tinkering right from the very beginning.
Correct. In fact, my co-founder Rohin, when he and let me just stop saying my co-founder Rohin. Let me just say Rohin going
Right.
forward. But in fact, Rohin, when he when he entered college, many people in India, when they join college, they care more about the institution they're going to and not the branch. Rohin was very particular about mechanical engineering as a branch, no matter what college he gets into.
Right.
Uh, and likewise, when I joined electrical engineering, I wanted to be an electrical engineer and no other engineer. So
Right.
that way, we were passionate about our disciplines.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So I think going back to this story, so you were in New Delhi and then you figured out that there was something that was amiss. And how did you land on this category?
We were just sitting and talking about different ideas, and I remember this was a conversation in one of my parents' properties. So my family has this library, and we were sitting out of this library, and and Rohin said, I have this idea that could really work out, but I want us to eliminate every other possibility before I share this idea. And I'm like, what idea are you talking about? And he's like, let's discuss all the others and then I'll come to this. And then he mentioned that, we could make a cooking robot. If you think about it, for Indian cooking at least, the cooking process is pretty straightforward. You have an onion tomato based gravy, and you have to heat it and cook it for a very long time. So you have to continue to stir your onions, and you have to continue to like make them brown, and then you have to add tomatoes, and then you have to continue to brown them.
Right.
And then there's some entree on top of that, some ingredient. It could be like paneer, which is an Indian cheese. It could be potatoes, it could be meat, it could be eggplants, it could be anything. But it's basically that onion tomato paste that takes like 15 minutes to make, and then something on top of it.
Right.
And that's the way Indians cook food. And over time we realized that it's not just the way Indians cook food, but that's the way any stovetop based dish is made.
Right.
If you're making something on a stovetop, it's basically you add something in a pan, heat it, stir it, add something else, heat it, stir it, and continue to do that till your dish gets made.
Right.
And this is a process that can very much be automated. So let us automate this. We were anyway spending a lot of time in our own kitchens in our home, and we were sick and tired of cooking, not every day, but every few times a week. And as young kids, you don't want to do even that amount of work in the kitchen, especially when you're not used to it. Like our parents are so used to it, they would never think of this as a chore. We
Right.
thought of this as a chore, and we thought this could be automated, and we started working on it.
Amazing. Amazing. And then when did you decide to kind of move to Bangalore? And what was the primary reason for you to move to Bangalore from New Delhi?
So um, we we started in, as I said, Rohin's parents' house. About 6 months into working out of there, we were invited by Bosch, which was which continues to be the second largest appliance maker in the world. We were invited by them to visit their facility in Bangalore, where they had this accelerator program um, called the Bosch DNA Accelerator program. It was the first time they were running this program. Accelerators were very new in India. I think, for as far as I can remember, I feel that was the first accelerator program in India.
Interesting.
I can't think of any before that.
Right.
Um, but they invited us. They said, why don't you work out of our offices, use our equipment, use our facility, talk to our network of mentors, and talk to our customers and try to get as much as you can from this.
But this is the
And we
time.
asked,
So hold on to this. Like, so before you kind of became a part of the Bosch Accelerator, did you actually make up your mind that we will make a company out of this and we will kind of build a product out of this and we'll create something? Was that the decision that was very easy to take, or was it like literally back and forth, and then you had a whole bunch of people telling you not to do it?
so the decision to turn this into a business was there from day one. Both of us come from business families. My dad runs a food grain business in New Delhi. Rohin's parents run a manufacturing facility for eye equipment, and so we understood food, we understood manufacturing, we were always encouraged to take risks. My father always used to tell me that you only learn from mistakes, so there's no harm in failing, because when you fail you just learn something, and when you learn something you do it better the next time.
Right.
So uh, so we were always encouraged to take risks and start businesses of our own.
Got it. Got it. So you applied, you created the company, and then you applied to this Bosch Accelerator program.
Correct.
You got selected, and then I'm assuming there were other startups who were trying to do a few things at that point in time. I don't know how many were there, like hardware story, tough to kind of remember. But
Correct.
you got in, and then you moved to Bangalore.
Yes, we moved to Bangalore, and the plan was to only be there for 3 months. But during those 3 month time frame, we saw a couple of things, um, and and the most important thing that we saw was the presence of an ecosystem
Hmm.
in India, not in India, but in New Delhi. Whenever something did not work out, whenever we had a prototype and we showed it to somebody, they would say, "Guys, this will not work out, and you should probably stop doing this." So that's the kind of feedback we would typically get from people in New Delhi. Whereas in Bangalore, people would also tell us that, guys, this would not work out. But what can we do so that this does work out? Was how they would end that statement, as opposed to the
Got
former
it.
way.
Got it. Got
So
it.
there was a
It's just
problem solving mindset that just did not exist in New Delhi.
right, right, right. No, let's just double click on that because I think that is a very interesting point that you make because, the idea is that I think there is this underlying assumption, and now because of the internet and everything else, that you can, it's democratized access to information and knowledge. You can see what's going around in the world. But is it safe to assume at that point in time, just because people didn't have the full context of the possibilities of what you could create, you could get a limited version of feedback just on the concept and say, hey, this is not going to work because they were not used to seeing any of this stuff throughout their journey, right? Like this innovation ecosystem, this challenging product mindset did not exist somehow because it was never seen by people outside of India. Right? Is that a fair thing to say? Do you think that was the limitation? Because you would have explored, you would have ventured out, you would have looked at designs, you would have looked at maybe magazines or internet to figure out what was going on. Um, and people who were evaluating this idea for you or giving you feedback did not have that broader universal view of the lay of the land. Is that safe to say?
In New Delhi, what you're saying is correct, but that was not the case in Bangalore.
Bangalore, right?
In
I'm saying
Bangalore,
relative difference, maybe.
yes,
Yes. Okay.
yeah. In Bangalore, maybe because it was a city of product builders, they understood that they understood that what is being showed to us is just merely a prototype, and someday it can morph into XYZ, and they knew how to dream, they knew how to have a vision. I feel the same did not exist in India or in New Delhi. And
Right.
sorry for saying
At
that,
that time.
in New Delhi, because New Delhi is not a city of builders, right? New Delhi is a city, traditionally a city of old school business.
Right. Right. No, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. So you moved to the Bangalore, you found this ecosystem. And so what was the decision that, uh, or what was the journey actually inside the Bosch Accelerator that really kind of opened up the world of possibilities for you? What did that ecosystem really mean? I don't know even today what is a hardware ecosystem for a kitchen appliance today in India. So maybe throw some light on that.
We moved to Bangalore not because there was a hardware ecosystem in Bangalore. We moved to Bangalore because there was a startup ecosystem in Bangalore. In New Delhi, as I mentioned, the good thing was that there was a very good supply chain sort of a ecosystem in New Delhi. And there's this market called Chandni Chowk,
Yes.
which is like the hub of any
Trading.
movement of goods and
Yes.
trading. And so whatever you need to buy, you will find a trader to for any kind of equipment you want. But what Delhi lacked was, while they had traders, they did not have builders. The mindset that people had was very different. There was a lot of clashing egos, and this ability to generally compete and pull people down. In Bangalore, whereas every day when we were working out of this area called Kormangla, and Kormangla had this Starbucks. I think there were only maybe two Starbucks in all of Bangalore at the time. Um, and the Kormangla Starbucks had, whenever I used to sit and work out of there, I would always hear one startup founder pitching to another, VC on some table with nobody disturbing them. So I remember clearly the Chayos founder pitching to a VC in that Starbucks. I
Wow.
clearly remember Bhavish Agarwal from Ola pitching to somebody in that Starbucks. And there were, I think, a couple of such meetings that we saw there uh, out of just serendipity, right? You're just working out of there and you're
Right.
hearing those conversations happen.
Got
Um,
it.
so that was there. It was easier to hire in Bangalore.
Hmm.
People were willing to bet on you. Companies were willing to bet on you. Bosch was willing to give their office space to us. Um, and we had access to some knowledge, know-how from them. And so we continued to stay in Bangalore. What was it like at Bosch? At Bosch, we just had this space where we could tinker and experiment. We had access to some Bosch employees who we could talk to and get feedback from.
Yeah.
We did not have access to Bosch customers, but we had access to people who had access to those customers, and through those people, we could get a sense of what Bosch customers wanted uh, when they were buying consumer appliances. Bosch had an appliance division. A lot of R&D happened in Bangalore as well. So we were able to talk to people in the Bosch R&D division uh, about the challenges that there would be in building a kitchen appliance. There was cleanliness, reliability, manufacturing, price, branding, um, all of these certifications, regulations, all of these things that we probably had not thought about while working on our first iteration would surface one way or the other when operating out of Bosch, and so
Right.
it helped widen our horizons.
Right, right, right. So it's safe to say also that this was like a little catalyst for you, where I think the big advantage that you got through that was one, you were talking to people who were talking to customers who were potential, consumers of your product. And then you also had maybe specialists who were product designers in this area of kitchen appliances and who could share with you the softer nuances that, you as young kids would never know, right? And I think that would have been a pretty valuable insight coming from that journey. And was that like a lot of reality check? Did you get a lot of reality check during that whole process, saying, "Hey, listen, we were doing it this way, but this looks completely primitive and naive, and we should be doing it this way"? How many times did you go through that journey?
I don't think there were multiple such aha moments during our course of Bosch, but I'm pretty sure during our daily interactions, somehow these ideas continued to click us. So they compounded over time, but there was no specific aha moment that really happened at Bosch. Likewise, there were a lot of investor interactions at Bosch as well. Bosch would regularly invite VCs in the office as well, and oftentimes we would also talk to them and figure out, hey, what would it take for this business to be investable,
Got it.
right? So those conversations also would not have happened in Delhi at all.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I think let's maybe talk a little bit about that. So because I think one of the other challenges that people ordinarily have, and then startups always face, is this, that when do I go and talk to an investor, right? And what is the right time to kind of go ahead and raise? And in your case, for a company building hardware, which probably will not have initial set of consumers in India, and we'll talk a little bit about that. What was the story like? Where in that point of your journey did you decide that we need to now raise money and we need to talk to these kind of investors?
I think we started talking to investors as soon as we could, as soon as we had like a working proof of concept, because we did not have our own money. We were fresh grads right out of college, and to build this company, we needed capital, and to have capital, we needed to talk to investors. So we started talking to investors very early on, but it took us about 2 years to get our first check. And the reason for that, and we're grateful we were in Bangalore at the time, because there was Bosch DNA on one hand, but then, as I told you, like 3 months out, we had to graduate from that program. Bosch let us stay for maybe another 3 to 6 months. I don't remember what that time frame was, but we stayed there for a bit more time. But then, thankfully, we were also in Bangalore, where the government of Karnataka was pushing the startup agenda. And the government of Karnataka had this program at the time called Elevate 100, where I think for the very first time in India, a state government decided that they were going to give government grants to young startups who barely had an idea, as long as they were working on something deep tech, biotech, something to that tune. So the
Got it.
government of Karnataka at that time decided that they were going to choose 50 startups, actually 100 startups. That's why Elevate 100.
Right.
So they will elevate 100 startups and they will give each of them up to 50 lakh rupees each, which is the equivalent of, about $40,000 each, which is quite a sizable amount of money by
Right.
Indian standards. Actually, about $60,000.
Right.
Right. So we were able to tap into that grant from the government of Karnataka. Not only did they give us grant money, they had this separate space called the NASCOM Center of Excellence for IoT, where they would give space to IoT startups along with lab equipment, 3D printers, ESD equipment, you know, what are these things called, like multimeters and all kinds of equipment you might need to run your
On your
IoT
devices. Yeah.
stuff. They had partnered with Qualcomm, Texas Instruments, Intel, you name the semiconductor company, and they had partnered with the government of Karnataka to help these companies. So in Bangalore, basically, we now had free office space for more than a year by the government of Karnataka. We had equity-free capital from the government of Karnataka to continue to run experiments, um, and and we had the support of all these ecosystem partners that they had partnered with, meeting rooms, etc., to basically run our business. So we hired a few interns, continued to build, and continued to pitch in parallel. The challenge was that in India, at that point of time, there was no precedent for any hardware company to have ever raised venture capital, especially so when the founders were first time founders building for the world from India, um, you know, and running a deep tech company. So it was impossible, almost impossible for us to convince any investor to write a check. Till finally, Binny Bansal, who's the co-founder of Flipkart, decided to invest in the company. Interestingly enough, there was at that time only one more company that I know of that was building consumer hardware that had ever raised capital in India, and that company was Ather Energy.
Right. Okay.
And
Building the
and
scooters.
yes, and
Yes.
Ather was also funded by Binny and Sachin.
That's right. Okay, great. So this story is unfolding in Bangalore. Talk to me a little bit about the actual product, right? Let's get into the product details for a change, right? Like what does it constitute? How did you kind of bring it together? What was the tinkering like? Just let's kind of get into a little bit of details because I think it's important for people to visualize that this product is just like a kitchen appliance also has many components coming together, and in your case, it has to come together with a lot of software and intelligence built in and experience to make sure that it delivers what it promises to deliver. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Um, so I think it's just hard to build hardware. If um, there's just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It's like building any other product. It's
Right.
just too multidisciplinary to be built by one single person, um, and that brings its own challenges. You typically need a mechanical engineer. You need some software folks. You need a firmware engineer. You need an industrial designer. Uh, but it's like building any other product. The biggest problem with hardware is that your iteration cycles tend to be very low. Unlike software, where you can ship a piece of code in whatever 7 days, test it out with consumers, take
You
feedback,
mean the cycles are
iterate.
very long? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cycles in hardware are very, very long.
Yeah.
So whatever iterations you make, it better be backed by a lot of data. You better have a very, very strong intuition of what will work, what will not work. Because if your intuition is wrong, you will have lost, good 6, 8 months of your life.
Right.
Uh, so that is just the biggest problem with hardware, and so you have to be very close to customers, continue to take feedback, continue to refine, and be obsessed with the customer problem. So Posha is a countertop device that helps you and your family eat freshly cooked meals every single day without you spending tons of time in the kitchen. All you have to do is choose a recipe on the screen of our device, put in freshly chopped ingredients in different containers, tap cook, and out comes a delicious meal. It's like a coffee machine but for food. Just like in a coffee machine, you choose a brew of coffee, put in, water, coffee beans, milk in different containers, tap brew, and out comes the cup of coffee. We do the very same thing for food. You choose a recipe, you say, I want to eat penne Alfredo with mushrooms today. It will ask you to put penne in container one, mushrooms in container two, milk in container three. It has a tray for putting in all the spices, space for oil and water. You put all of these ingredients in different containers, tap cook, and it adds the right ingredients at the right time, stirs it, heats it, has a camera that would look at change in color, texture, consistency, and cook a meal for you. For our business, there are basically three. So the product itself has three big components. There's the hardware piece, which is often what people confuse us for, that it's just the hardware. The hardware is the physical device that you see.
Right.
There's the software. Why do you need software, right? Software is because uh, our customers are based all over the world. We might have customers based in Seattle where it's almost rainy all throughout the year. They could be in Texas where it's extremely hot, or they could be in New York where it snows pretty often. Um, and the ambient conditions here are different. And if you know food, you know that, uh, speaking of an onion specifically, an onion would take longer to brown in snowy conditions versus in sunny Texas where it would brown fairly quickly. Uh, your onion could be from different farms. From An onion from a particular farm might take 5 minutes to brown versus from another farm might take 7 minutes to brown.
Right.
We as human beings use our eyes to take those decisions in real time. We use our eyes to, brown it, change the heat, stop browning it, adding in the next ingredient, and we just use like closed loop feedback to cook.
That's right.
Traditional appliances don't do that. They use time and temperature, and they rely on their human, lords or human counterparts to basically use their intelligence. We are building all that human intelligence into the machine, which means the machine knows when to stop browning. The machine knows when to, add the next ingredient. If I ask a user to put only 3 ounces of mushrooms and they end up putting 5 ounces of mushrooms, the machine knows that I need to brown these mushrooms for longer because I can see more mushrooms. Uh, so if a user says I want my dish more spicy, the machine knows that it needs to not just adjust the spice, but also the water content
Right.
and the heating times to make sure it's as hot. So we need software for all of that. So there's the hardware and there's the software, and the third piece in our business is the content, the recipes that actually have to be cooked. So the recipes are designed by our. So the hardware for the hardware we have our own team of mechanical engineers, industrial designers, electrical engineers, electronics engineers. Um, for our software team, we have our own firmware engineers, UX engineers, AI, computer vision engineers. And then on the culinary side, we have our in house team of chefs that craft all these recipes, as well as chefs that we work very closely with. We have recipes crafted by some of the finest chefs on the planet, and we're talking about MasterChef US, Australia, Latin America finalists who have lent us their recipes. We're talking about TikTok and YouTube creators with whom we have worked with to get all the recipes you see on social media on our device, and and most recently with the proliferation of Gen AI, we are we are shipping capabilities in the product where there are no recipes, where Posha thinks like any other human chef. When
Wonderful.
when when you meet a human chef, you don't tell them, "Hey, cook a paneer burji, whatever for me." You tell them, "Hey, I feel like having something tangy that's also vegan and that uses some coconut milk. Can you prepare something for me?"
Right.
We are training our robot to do that while not giving us garbage output, which Chat GPT and other Gen AI tools are, used to giving out. With food, you can't expect any garbage output to come out. So we are, so I think that explains the components of a business well. And when bringing all of this together, you can imagine how deep the challenges are, especially for a young company like ours, which does not have the resources of Tesla.
Got it. Got it. And so, this is a concept today. Again, kind of rewinding back in time. I think the whole process of unpacking this journey for you, from now Bangalore
Mhm.
to Silicon Valley and San Francisco, there were obviously a lot of decision points in the middle, right? And then you had, at some point in time, either with discussions with your investors, you decided that, hey, maybe India is not the right market for me to kind of test out this product, and I need to find a different set of, evolved consumers who are willing to experiment. How did that decision making process happen with you? Was it like investor led? Was it something that you came up with, or what was the process like?
Most decisions in our company are customer led. So when we built a prototype, we decided to show it to people, and we decided to show it to people in person. We decided to show it via our website, via videos on YouTube, so on and so forth. And we noticed that a lot of traffic on our website was being driven by countries outside of India. And so we made it a conscious effort to actually talk to these people. We scheduled Zoom calls with customers both inside India and outside of India to try to understand what problems they felt in their, what first of all, how did they even manage food every single day? So how do you manage food? What kinds of food do you eat? How many times do you eat this food? Do you cook? Do you eat out? Why is that the case? What problems are you looking to solve in your life when it comes to food? So on and so forth. And the customer development framework popularized by Eric Ries, really helped us. So we continue to do customer development, and when talking to customers, when we try to understand the kind of problems, we realize that India and the developed world were different in two fundamental ways. One was that in India you had access to a lot of affordable help available to you, both inside the house and outside. By inside the house, I mean India is an economy where the elite can, not even the elite, the middle class can hire people to cook for them, to clean for them, to do the laundry for them, to drive around for them.
Right.
Whereas in the developed world, that is not the case. People do not have the middle class does not have access to as much affordable help for their chores, and they're very self-reliant. B, in India, the societal structure is still such that uh, that that most families have a single breadwinner with the other partner responsible for family care. Uh, and so typically the mother or the wife is responsible for cooking for the family, and they take pride in doing so. And it happens to be one of their full-time activities, even if it's not hired help. In the developed world, on the other hand, the proliferation of double income couples and households is much higher. Uh, as a result of which, the problems that people in India, when we talk to people, they said the problem we have is that chopping and cutting ingredients is too cumbersome, and we want something that chops ingredients for us. And cooking is easy because we have the time to cook. but chopping and cutting is too effortful. Um, and we're willing to pay 10,000 rupees for a solution. 10,000 rupees is like $120 for a solution that can help us chop. In the developed world, people would say, our problem is we don't have time. We want anything that gives us our time back in
Right.
whatever way possible. Um, and that could be across the food chain. It could be helping us figure out what to eat. It could be helping us shop groceries. It could be chopping the ingredients. It could be actually cooking the dish. It could be post cooking cleanup. But anything that helps us save time is something we're willing to pay for, and we're willing to pay, whatever it takes for that. As high as even $5,000 in some cases,
Right.
if it helps us give our time back, because cost of labor, we're spending 30 our cost of time, even if it is $30 an hour, and we're spending 2 hours in the kitchen every day. That's $60 per day. Uh, and if you multiply that by 365, you have like good, 10 or $1,000 that I'm spending every year of my time in the kitchen.
Right.
So anything that saves me that amount of time is something I value. People in India do not value time as much; they valued uh, money more than time.
Okay.
Uh, and so during those conversations, we realized that there is a market in India. However, that market is very small and very localized to the silicon to the local Silicon Valley that exists in Bangalore,
Hmm.
India.
Hmm.
Uh, People who have global exposure and continue to value their time, and continue to
A
value.
limited set of folks would probably resonate with that
Correct,
concept, right? But it's a growing trend in India also. So hopefully, you'll have more
correct,
market coming in here as well. Okay,
correct.
just coming back to the product, because I think it involves several set of challenges and different interpretations of signals that come from, like, we discussed the onion problem, the browning problem, the temperature problem. Like, I was just thinking in my head that just the computer vision part of the problem itself is going to be very complex, because I think to a great extent you're also playing with heat that you have to monitor. So how is that technology very unique for you? Like, what did it take for you to bring that all together, be able to see through the heat to the product what's happening there, and how does that technology evolve over the last maybe couple of years, because I think cameras are getting better. Did you have to create something completely out of the ordinary that was not available to you 4 years 5 years ago, and now it's available? Like, give me some perspective on that, because every world is changing, right? Every component world is changing and developing really fast.
And even the sensor side, there was not a lot of challenge. Cameras existed back in the day. Cameras continue to exist now, and for our use cases, I don't think high-powered cameras really make the difference. The difference is in how you process those images. So there should be abundant data available to train on, and then B, there you should have training models that work reliably.
Right.
Um, so for data, we had our own in-house team of people who would continue to cook on, because there was no training, like there was no data set available.
That's right.
So we had our own team of people who would cook food live, either on our prototypes or on the stovetop. We would have
Right.
a camera set up on top of the cooking surface. We would record a video and we would extract every single frame out of the video. The team would manually annotate every single image, and then every single annotated image will be fed into our data set to be trained. Um, and over time, we also started getting this data from customers, because we started deploying some of these units with very rudimentary computer vision, and whatever food our customers cooked, we used to take that data again to continue to retrain our AIs. So that was the data problem. I hope that clarifies how we use computer vision. And on
Right.
the training side, we had very rudimentary models earlier. There was like OpenCV and there was TensorFlow and a couple of other models that existed back in the day. Now those models, there's obviously a huge increase in the number of models available, the ability for us to make our own models. Uh, talent is far and few, but we were able to attract the best and brightest talent for these for this kind of problem statement early on, because very few companies in India were working on computer vision based applications, and engineers were just looking for very were looking for companies that had exciting work for them.
Awesome, awesome. So, let me pause on that a little bit, and then, talk a little bit about the hiring part of it, right? So, because you were looking for very diverse set of talent at that point in time, talent that may have been available because a lot of people were doing work in that area or doing a basic engineering in those specialities, as you discussed: mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronics engineering. You wanted to look for embedded engineers, but at the same time, you were a very early startup. You were not going to probably pay a lot, and everybody else in that rat race was headed towards one of these big three, giant IT services company, or like the big tech, development centers of the Microsofts and the Googles of the world, right? So how was hiring this great talent that needs to come and work on this? Is literally, it's literally like hiring for R&D, not for anything else, right? Like, what were the traits that you were looking for? Who were the kind of people that you were talking to?
Good question. So early on, we were looking for people who were joining us because they loved the problem statement, who were willing, and this was very early days. Things have changed now as they've scaled, but who were willing to take a salary cut. So if people were willing to take a salary cut, that was a good indicator that they were excited about the problem. We would try to reward them in terms of stocks, and they would value stocks. Um, so so that mindset was very important. They ideally should have not come from big companies, and if they have come from big companies, somehow or the other, they should demonstrate that they have the startup mindset of, not wanting systems in place, but wanting to figure things out on their own. Uh, so the cultural traits of being agile, of being startup-y, of wanting to solve problems, of being, team player, were much more important than the raw skill set. We realized that if they had the right mindset, they would put in double the hours, and through sheer will and through sheer ability of being focused and through grit, they would be able to build the same skill sets as that of the talented 10x engineer you find from a big company that is probably not, it's not a good culture fit. So finding culture fit was more important to us than finding like the right technical fit.
Right. Any difficult questions you remember from the talent and the candidates they asked you?
Uh, Let me recall. I haven't. I don't really recall. The questions we would ask, but I do remember asking them. Actually, I'll have to refresh my notes.
Okay,
Uh, but
got it.
but we would ask them, hey, what are your biggest mistakes? And we would ask them what their biggest mistakes were, and we would consciously look for people who were not sugarcoating their mistakes, who actually agreed on, who honestly told us the biggest mistakes they had made, how they had learned from those mistakes and come out stronger. We would ask them what were the projects they were most proud of, um, and what percentage of the win they would, take credit for, and almost exclusively looked for people who did not fully take credit for their biggest wins. Uh, there were always assignment rounds, multiple assignment rounds, in fact. So if a person was not willing to do an assignment, they were not being hired. Uh, Even now, before we even do a face-to-face interview, we ask them to do an assignment. And we feel that is the biggest predictor of whether or not they're interested in the company.
Understood.
Because if a person is willing to spend many hours or days of their time without even talking to a company, doing an assignment, that shows that they're really, really interested in the company. That
Right.
also shows that they're not just only talk and no action. Like their work speaks for, themselves.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. Let's now shift our gears to talk a little bit about the transition from Bangalore to Silicon Valley, right? So you are here in the Bay Area, and then I assume Rohin and team are here in Bangalore.
Mhm.
And like what was that transition like? What kind of, was there like a soft landing that you did in the Bay Area? Was it like a hard decision? How did you kind of move that, and now how are you shaping this thing up?
So I think a big catalyst in us moving to the Bay Area was one of our angel investors. Her name is Asha Jadeja Motwani. I remember. So Asha Jadeja is the wife of late Rajiv Motwani. Rajiv happened to be one of the authors, one of the four authors of the page rank algorithm. Two of them being Larry and Sergey, who are
Right,
the co-founders of Google.
right,
Rajiv was a professor at Stanford for Larry and Sergey, and wrote one of the earliest texts in Google and Facebook.
right,
So Asha was in India for this thing called Road to GES, Global Entrepreneurship Summit, and I met her in India. I, quickly for like 40 seconds told her about what we were doing, and Asha said, "This sounds interesting. Why don't you get on a Skype call with me? And here's my Skype ID. Ping me." And I got back home for 40 seconds. I just like pinged her and she responded and she got on a Skype call with me. And we discussed at length about what Nimble at the time did. Um, she was excited enough and she told me that she ran this fellowship in Silicon Valley called the Rajiv Circle Fellowship,
right.
named after her late husband Rajiv.
That's right.
Um, where she would invite young entrepreneurs from India and Pakistan to spend 2 to 3 weeks in Silicon Valley, get exposed to the ecosystem, and then fly back to India and Pakistan to solve problems locally.
Right.
Uh, what was in it for her? Nothing. It was just her trying to give back to society. And so I told my parents that this lady Asha Jadeja has. So Asha invited me to Silicon Valley for this program. And I told my parents that, Asha has invited me for this program. And my parents asked me what she had in it for her. I said nothing. They're like, how are you paying for this trip? And I told them that she'll be paying for flight, stay, food, whatever else.
Right.
And then they said, okay, let's see if this goes through. And to their surprise and to mine, it went through. And, she sent the flight tickets and, accommodation and all of that. And that was my first exposure to Silicon Valley. We discussed our product with customers there and got all the feedback I told you about. And I got back in India. And in the back of my mind, it always continued like Asha had this. Asha felt that Indian entrepreneurs could do phenomenal things if they established this bridge between Silicon Valley and India, something that now all of us know very well about,
Right.
right?
She was a
Um,
pioneer. She was an early pioneer in that area.
Okay.
Right.
And so she continued to ingrain that idea into our minds. And when it was time and we had talked to enough customers, I said, well, if we need to be close to our customers, and now that we've decided the customers are in the US, at least we should do like a pilot run of our product in the US. So in the middle of COVID, I think in 2020, I flew to the US and we deployed like 30 odd devices in consumer homes in the US. And I was still visiting then. Um, over those, over a period of a few weeks and months, we got a lot of first-hand usage feedback from customers in the Bay Area. And we had these in parallel. We had units deployed in Bangalore homes as well. So we had Bangalore users using our robot. We had US users using our robot for extended periods of time, and we had usage data. We had willingness to pay. We had qualitative feedback. And at the end of all of that, all of those trials, it was unequivocally clear that our market was going to be in the US. So
And
we
what were
showed
those?
that data.
What were those? Elements of the product market fit, as we call it in our industry, that you heard back from the U.S. customers.
There was very high usage. I think in the peak time, we were looking at usage of as high as like 7 to 10 times a week. So people were, God knows why they were cooking this much, but maybe it was the early excitement of the product, but they were cooking a lot. But there was extremely high usage of the product. Uh, there was extremely high retention. People would continue to renew. There was extremely high willingness to pay. In early days, we charged as much as $150 a month from consumers to use our robot.
Right. I think that's a very interesting point that you make, and I want to kind of double click on that a little bit because, this is a beta program that is very different. Normally, the beta program involves you kind of signing up people and shipping something for free, and then they test it out and give you feedback. But here, you were running a like literally a paid beta program, right?
Mhm.
Is that fair?
Yes.
And what was the strategy behind running a paid beta program?
So we felt that that evidence of true value could only be found out if customers paid you. And absence of value could be determined as soon as a customer decided that they no longer wanted to pay for your offering. So, so, so we basically gate we used pricing as a gatekeeper for product access. We said everybody offered to be beta users. Like there were thousands of, if not thousands, hundreds of people who said we want to participate in a beta.
Correct.
We said okay, you can participate in a beta as long as you pay us this amount of money per month. And we only took in people who had high willingness to pay, because that showed that they were not getting our product in for bragging rights, but because they actually saw a problem could be solved with that
Right.
product.
Right.
So that was one. It was a barrier to entry to weed out people who were not real users for us. Um, B, um, instead of keeping it a one-time payment, we said let's make it a recurring thing, because as soon as a person stops, if we don't make it a recurring thing, people will never tell us when they're not seeing value. But if people are paying a ridiculously high amount to us for being part of the beta, one, they will make sure all of their concerns are heard. They will point out every single problem they see with the product because they're
Right.
paying so much
They
for the
committed to the
product.
problem, right? So they're helping you solve
They
it. They're actually extended product managers,
they committed to the problem, and it would actually pinch them if something did not work.
right?
You know, imagine buying like a 40,000 car versus a $400,000 car.
Right.
If you're buying a $400,000 car, a small dent, and you would go to the dealership and ask them to take
Why this?
care of the dent. But if
Right.
it's a $40,000 car, maybe you wouldn't care as much. Uh, so people really cared about every single problem, and they made sure that all of their concerns were heard. And as soon as the product stopped giving them that amount of value, they would just say, "Hey, this is not solving my purpose. Please take the product back." They have an incentive to return the product because they have this finite amount of capital going out of the bank every single month.
Makes a
So,
lot of sense.
so that's what we did. And in the early days, we actually had a weekly cadence. So we would charge them every week to see at what week
Just
number they
literally
were
keeping them as
selling.
like you're keeping them as almost paid testers rather than paid consumers.
Correct. Yeah.
Very
Uh,
interesting strategy. Very interesting strategy. So, this kind of panned out, and then, you collected all this feedback. And now just tell me, what does the US operation look like? Like, what are you doing in the US right now? Because now that you've figured out that your first set of customers are going to be there, I think you've already kind of acquired close to 1,000 customers, right, in some shape and
correct.
form. What does it take to kind of service them in the US, and how the operations are structured now? Because now, if you think about this whole thing, right, like software companies, the SaaS teams are in India. You have the go-to-market, sales field force or whatever for enterprise sales sitting in the US. Those are the traditional GTM models that everybody has. What is your model?
It's very similar to that model. It's just that instead of a sales, so in the short term, we also have like a sales force, and that sales force is me and a couple of more people here, because we're doing in-person demos to consumers. We're going to their place. We're actually, so I would say we have a product development team sitting out of India. That's R&D, admin, finance, operations, product development. All of that sits out of India. In the US, we have everything that's customer focused. Customer focused would be in-person onboarding, in-person demos, in-person sales, press relationships, investor relationships. Um, so all of that stuff happened in the US. In the early days, we are very much like sales driven, because people need to see your product, touch your product, taste the food out of the product in person. Over time, we are turning to be more marketing driven, not sales driven. But then, what are the marketing insights that we need to gather so that the message lands right, so that our story is being told by the right outlets? All of that again happens in the US. Um, um, yeah, I think that's how the operation is also structured
Operations.
right
Talk to me a little bit about the supply chain for you, because this is a hardware product, right? And I'm assuming that you are assembling the product locally in the US right now, right? Like, because it kind of is closer to the customer, saves you kind of costs. Otherwise, if you have to create it in India and then ship it outside, it's going to be very expensive. So what's the supply chain that you have created? How do you source your components? Are you thinking about, kind of building a backup supply chain given the dynamics? I'm assuming there's some level of China dependency as well. So, given the new geopolitical landscape that we are seeing, play out, what are the things that you feel about that supply chain? So, let's talk a little bit
now.
about that supply chain element right now.
So currently, we are heavily reliant on Chinese talent for our supply chain, and many people believe that the reason we have to be in China is because it's more cost affordable to be in China. It's nothing is far from the truth. China is in fact, cost comparable to anywhere else on the planet, including the US. It's fairly expensive now to manufacture in China, but then China has invested a lot of money in this talented pool of people in tooling. So there's they've invested in vocational, courses and, this vocational training of people. So if I had to bring together experts from tooling in a single room in the US, I would probably be able to get only like, a few handfuls of people together. Whereas in China, if I had to get tooling experts in a room, it'll be multiple like stadiums of people who I'll be able to get.
Wow.
So, so China over the last few decades, the government has invested heavily in this skill set, and so from the cheapest electronics you can find to the fanciest equipment, the Vision Pro glasses are also made in China. So we have a dependency on China because the skill of manufacturing new products from scratch in a cost efficient manner, in a timely manner, in a high quality, with a high quality bar, can currently, in my opinion, only be done in China and no place else. Um India is coming up as a destination for low cost manufacturing. And I'm not saying high skill manufacturing, I'm saying low cost manufacturing, which means if you have an established line of your AirPods in China and you have a template to copy and paste that manufacturing line in India, then you can hire low cost labor in India and manufacture those AirPods. But if you are manufacturing a new product for the very first time, the Vision Pro headset, you will do it in China, even though it is cheaper to do it in India. And Apple is actually doing exactly that. Uh,
So you're talking about this middle layer, right? This middle layer, I think very interesting point that you mentioned. It's really not just the labor arbitrage. Uh, you know, there is this layer in the middle in China that you're talking about that is high quality talent for production, right?
mhm.
And that is a core catalyst for you to be able to manufacture high quality products. So, I think in India we are trying to do a lot of different things. There is a lot of push by the government to kind of upgrade our semiconductor capabilities. Right, that investment is going to come around, and that investment is going to lead a lot of changes in the short term as well. And there are other manufacturers of phones that have now moved their operations to India, and their iPhones biggest production is almost happening in India right now. So. Given that transition is happening and there will be more and more product tooling experts, do you think there is a possibility at some point in time you'll be able to build your own supply chain in India for that, or you would be still reliant for at least the next 5 years things coming out of China?
I think, as I mentioned, right, as long as you're working on a new product, you have to do it in China. And the Vision Pro line, the Meta glasses,
And is it
all of
because
that
of
is
the
happening.
time to develop that product and bring it to life? Is that the critical determining factor?
Yes, you have a lot of iterations in production also.
Right.
Right? A lot of tooling changes have to happen early on. You have to figure out sourcing. You have to figure out how to most efficiently set up your manufacturing line so that the process is efficient. Once you've done that in China, then you can copy and paste it in India, which is what is happening with smartphones now.
Right.
Your
The first
manufacturing line
level.
is established, no tooling changes have to be made,
Right.
it's all set. Now let's just change this level of people with that level of people because the process can be followed. uh, so
Fair enough.
it's the equivalent of early days software development. You had QA etc. happening in India or low cost economies, and all the deep tech R&D work happening in Silicon Valley. Now even R&D is shifting to India because you have
Right.
high skill talent. Because with QA everybody has become more skillful.
That's right.
I think the same thing will happen with manufacturing. You are absolutely right.
Okay, great, fantastic. And so now your current state is that you are doing this product tooling in China and bringing the components over to the US and then assembling it in the US?
So currently we are also assembling in China, and then we're shipping out the fully built out product from China to the US to our warehouse and then shipping it to consumers. Over time, we will obviously, have semi knockdown products, partly done in China, partly in the US, perhaps even divesting from China to other countries, possibly including India, as and when we reach a steady state, uh, manufacturing uh, setup.
Got it, got it, got it. Let's talk a little bit about the roadmap for Posha, right? Like so today, and maybe you can just talk a little bit about the current usage of Posha. We talked about 1,000 customers. You've got three wonderful investors on board, right? Like who are the investors that you have?
So we have Waterbridge Ventures, we have Exceed, we have Binny Bansal, we had Axel participate in some capacity.
Right,
We have very helpful angel investors, the founders of Grey Orange Robotics, Asha Jadeja,
right.
on our cap table.
Right, right, right. So how is that journey kind of unfolding for Posha? Like, what is the vision for Posha? Like, how many devices do you envisage will be out there? What's your story, right? Like, this is a tabletop thing, and how are you developing the roadmap now? And increasingly because of the developments in the AI models as well as the hardware capabilities, and we saw a lot of wonderful announcements from NVIDIA with the DGX and everything else coming into the physical robotics world. I think the possibilities are endless. So how are you thinking about, doing that product innovation story for Posha?
So, our objective is to attain what we call built-in status in consumer kitchens and replace the stovetop into. So, in the US, in most kitchens, you have this tripartite setup. You have an oven on the bottom, a kitchen countertop range, and then a hood.
That's right.
So, this entire assembly we want to replace with a Posha inbuilt unit over time. That and that is the stat, and I call this built-in status. And this built-in status is attained by very few, has been historically attained by very few companies, not companies, very few products. There has been refrigerators, there have been dishwashers, there have been ovens, and these products for the longest time were tabletop appliances or
Right.
standalone appliances.
Right.
Refrigerators were not built in from day one. Dishwashers were not built in from day one. The cooktop was not built in from day one. The microwave was not built in from day one. Uh, but the reason they were able to become built-in appliances was because they were able to prove high usage. Like refrigerators were something we were using every single day. Dishwashers were being used every single day. Microwaves were being used every single day.
Right.
And so with our countertop device, our top metric is weekly usage and retention over long periods of times. We have so far observed that people use us more than 3 times a week, every single week, over a period of more than 18 months. So we see clear signals of having built a product that deserves a place in the inbuilt kitchen. Like so we are moving towards um, devices that can replace the stovetop, and we see ourselves as a gateway device. So far all kitchen appliances have been traditional hardware devices that can do nothing but just like one single hardware function. But with us cooking food for them, which is the biggest missing piece in the kitchen, we're in a position where we can help users decide what they're going to eat for the upcoming week, where we can help them with their grocery list, with their meal plan. We can, at the click of a button, integrate with Instacart equivalents and get their ingredients delivered to their place. And we can help them share their customized recipes with all their friends through a very social feed and cook together. A lot of these features have already been shipped and are being shipped. We already have like a meal planning list. We already have a grocery ordering flow that we are yet to enable a one-click order button live. But long story short, we are looking at like the iPhone moment for the kitchen, where earlier cell phones were only being used to make calls, but then a cell phone in your pocket became a gateway
Right.
device for you to access the internet. We see Posha becoming exactly that for your kitchen, where all of your food journey from fitness to meal ordering to ingredients is being handled through a central Posha hub.
Right. That's a great way to put it, like an iPhone movement for Porsche. And then I think this iPhone became the platform that unleashed all the apps in the world. And you're going to be like the kitchen app of everything,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So this is a platform play that you're making. I get what you're saying. Very interesting possibilities exist there. You know, all of this cannot happen unless you are personally very, very strong, right? Like, and given the experience of many hardware companies, and now we are living in wonderful times in places like India, right? Like we have the space tech startups, Agnicool did their launch, Skyroot did their launch, Pixel just launched its Fireflies. Just amazing scenes to see all over the place from a private sector perspective. Obviously, ISRO has had a long-standing history of doing amazing things, and we are right on the top. But these are movements that I have observed can only be done by people who have been in the game for a long period of time. And now you're almost like 8 years into that journey. Hardware startup, kitchen tabletop, not a category that everybody understands, and you've solved every simple thing with a smile, or simple or complex thing with a smile. I've never seen you in a state of frustration. Every time I've interacted with you, the updates that I receive, I've never seen that sign of worry. So tell me what's going on behind Raghav and Rohin's head. When you're looking at this problem day in and day out, I'm sure there have been moments where you've said, hey, let's just not do this. This is not going to happen. Like, how have you gone through that journey?
So I think that it is very important for one to have like one more co-founder. I feel just having two partners helps divide the frustration.
Okay.
Uh, there are often times where I am extremely frustrated, but then my co-founder is not, and somehow, somehow he helps me overcome that frustrated state of mind, and vice versa, where
What about
where
investors? Can you pick up the phone and call these investors and WhatsApp them anytime saying, I'm going through this? Or they're saying,
very much so. Very much so. I'm very grateful to have, I think in the early days when we just started the company, um, it took us some time to realize that our investors and us are on the same side of the table now, after the investment has happened. Uh, but now that is no longer the case. Manish Khetarpal, who's the partner at Waterbridge Ventures, I consider him very much a mentor to me. If I need um, any kind of advice, I don't think I'll shy away twice from calling him. And in the past, it has so happened that I have like hid things from him, uh, uh, thinking he's on the other side of the table, and that has gotten me in like deep trouble.
okay,
So I
good.
can be honest in saying that,
Sure.
but now things are this way that even if I'm in my darkest moment, I'm pretty sure I can call my any one of my board members. Shailesh Tulshan, Manish from Waterbridge, Pratik Agarwal from Axel, and tell them exactly what's going on in my mind, and know that they would not judge me for me being my vulnerable self. Same goes for my co-founder, who's available, and our long-standing teammates who've been with us for many years. Um, I think all these people just help it make less of a lonely journey, make it less of a lonely journey for you. I think the blockers are mostly internal. As soon as you start trusting people who are with you in the journey, I think it just starts getting less lonely, and the frustration starts reducing automatically, is what I feel,
Got it.
having reflected over the 8 years of journey that we've had.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is fantastic. I think having these people to call anytime, and then also the co-founder bit that you shared is absolutely spot on, right? You cannot just do this on your own. You can have all the strength and energy, but you need people to kind of support you through this journey. Excellent. And now so there is this uh, you know I think you've also kind of exhibited at CES quite a few number of times, right? And I was always curious about the value of CES for Indian companies. Like, what does it? What it's almost like a holy place for a consumer electronics company to actually exhibit and be at CES, right? What was the first time like, and what is it like now? How have you taken advantage of that whole CES experience?
So we haven't exhibited at CES in a long time now. We exhibited at Eureka Park, which is the startup area where the startups exhibit many years back. It's been maybe 4 or 5 years now. Um, since then, we've just gone and visited CES, but not really exhibited. I feel there are two ways in which CES can help startups, younger startups. The first way is by helping them generate some PR buzz, and get some stories. There's a lot of preparation that is involved or required for that. You can't just expect to show up at CES and hope that media will come and cover you.
Right.
But but CES is certainly a place where all of the relevant media that you might need attention of is present. So as long as you reach out to them 2 months in advance, 3 months in advance, let them know that, hey, I'll be at CES, I'll have this booth, I will be showing a demo of my product. Why don't you come over and I'll show you a demo? If you do that with maybe 20 journalists, because all those 20 journalists who all live in different cities are
Are
available
there.
in the same location,
Right.
um, you can get a lot of PR coverage in a very short period of time as a result of that. So that is one value of CES, in my opinion. The second value of CES is distribution. This again is only helpful with some preparation. As long as you have a product that is ready to be scaled up, and can take up like distribution orders. Uh, it's good to be at CS because now you have the Walmarts and the Targets and the Costco's and the Amazons of the world looking for products that they can distribute via their platforms, and you can land a lot of deals there. In the absence of these two objectives, it becomes not too useful to showcase at CES, uh, unless, of course, you're very new and you just want some customer feedback, and your customer can be anybody walking around, so you can use it for customer discovery.
Got it. Got it. So, but you would definitely recommend for people to experience if you're building a hardware company or a hardware operation, it could be consumer product. Uh, would you recommend for startup founders anywhere else in the world to just kind of make a trip to CES to just experience the kind of things that happen? Would that be something that you would say?
As a attendee, absolutely. If you're a consumer electronics product builder, you need to go to CES to see what's the latest trends, what's going on, to realize that you're not alone. There are like thousands of more people that are solving all these complex consumer electronics challenges. To network with them, to learn from them, and as an exhibitor, you can't miss the opportunity to finding the right distributor and PR partners.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to now ask you, a couple of questions on the specific, things that you would like to see or changes that you would like to see in the hardware ecosystem in India, ideally for people who are starting now or thinking of starting now, have some wonderful ideas, how they should go about it. And then, we can look at some of the recommendations that you would want to make in terms of what maybe the government can do and other people can do. There are these labs that, IIT Madras has, they produced great companies already. There are other, institutions of IISc variety that are also kind of creating programs for different areas. Now that ecosystem did not exist when you were doing this. How do you feel about some of those things happening, and then what are your thoughts around that?
So I think government has a huge role to play, potentially, in developing the hardware innovation ecosystem in India. Um, and some thoughts, immediately come to mind. The first thought is that, if you look at Ather Energy, they were able to do what they have been able to do very much so because in the early days they had the backing of IIT Madras behind them. They were able to use IIT Madras labs to develop their motors.
Right.
Likewise, for us, we were able to do what we have been able to do because in the early days we had the government of Karnataka and its facilities available to us.
Right.
Um, I think um, I think educational institutions and some of these government facilities are, and I'm pretty sure for Agnicool and for for all these other Pixel and other space tech companies you talked about, ISRO has had a huge role.
Huge role to play.
Um,
Yep.
Right, there are these. There was this company, I forgot the name of. Space tech company, another eVTOL company that launched recently, and the Bangalore airport authorities had gave them some support and some push to take them places. So I think that is important, and that's not just in India. Even in the US, if you look at it, Tesla in the early days was able to do what it was able to do because of the EV incentives that the government provided to them. And even now for Ather, all the EV incentives that the government is providing them, they're able to, make headway. So there is a role for government to play. I don't think it can happen independent of the government. Some incentives are required. Um, what are the specific things that we have had faced problems with, which can be solved? I think CES representation or trade show representation. Um, this year at CES, we saw the booths of Hong Kong. We saw, Hong Kong, government of Hong Kong bring their own startups. There was a Taiwan pavilion. There was a China pavilion. There were these pavilions of all these other countries. There was also an India pavilion. There were, in fact, two India pavilions. One India pavilion was by the Electronic Semiconductor Division of India, and the second India pavilion was by the Motwani Jadeja
That's right.
Foundation.
Yeah.
Uh, and the private pavilion seemed to look much more attractive than the government pavilion. And I am saddened to say this that even the Hong Kong and Taiwan and all these pavilions look much better than the India pavilions.
So we are not pulling our
So
weight. We need to pull our weight.
we need to pull our weight. Like we have all these innovations, we need to showcase these innovations on the global
Yeah.
stage, and there
Right.
needs to be some push. Um,
Right.
Second, there is still a lot of reliance that we have on imports when it comes to components. Unfortunately, every company that is building in the consumer electronic space needs components, and these components come from overseas, and it is a pain to get them cleared from customs in India. So much so that we had to set up a small team in China just to iterate fast, uh, right? Because in Shenzhen, what would happen is we would make an iteration, we would realize that this, motor is not the right motor. We
Right.
would go upstairs, get this motor down, iterate on it. This doesn't work. We would go upstairs, get another motor, come down, iterate, and we would have made three changes to the hardware in the single day.
Right.
In India, in US, if you have to make those same changes, it'll take you 3 days. Why? Because overnight shipping by FedEx is like a night. So you see your motor is not working, you place an order. The component comes from China or elsewhere in like a day because FedEx clears it in a day,
Wow.
and then you continue to do this. So it takes, instead of a single day, you'll take maybe 4 days at top at max. In India, to say do the same number of iterations, it would take you 3 weeks
3 weeks. Yeah.
because every component would be stuck at customs for 1 week.
And you have to
So
create a lot of documentation back and forth to justify why you're ordering this product and why is it need to be available to you. So okay, I think
correct.
that's a very real problem. I think we need to solve, because I think all these policy initiatives are great, but as long as our product engineers can't get their hands dirty on these components really fast, we will always
Correct.
be late to the game. I think that is something that we need to be very honest about in if you want to really create a competitive ecosystem in India. So I'm
Correct.
100% with you. Anything else, Raghav, that you want to share?
Third thing, I don't think this is easily solvable just because we are a low trust economy still to a large degree.
Yeah.
But even younger startups, when setting up their own entities, have to spend a significant percentage of their capital on accounting, bookkeeping, compliances, all of that admin, stuff that early companies shouldn't have to do. And I'm only realizing this after having moved to US. Even with a company that's much larger than what it was 8 years back,
Right.
uh, our accounting admin headache in US is a fraction even now of what it was for us like 7 years
Very
back in India.
understood. Makes sense. Makes sense. I think we're getting better. So hopefully that point is well taken, and we'll keep improving on that front. But
Yeah,
this is something that I think surely deserves a lot of attention, simply because we want to make sure that the entrepreneurs are spending time in doing what they know best, which is to
right.
build high quality products, get great talent together, and change the world rather than
Yeah,
change the documentation. So
yeah,
we will. I think that's a point well taken, and I appreciate the candidness of you being a developer yourself, sharing this with us, Raghav.
right,
So,
right.
maybe a couple of other points that we should just talk about. We haven't talked about failures, right? So, anything that comes to your mind, because obviously failures teach us a lot, and we always end up doing lip service whenever we are talking about startup journeys, because we always look at what successes have been, but I think to delve into failures is really being very honest, and at Double Down Pod we really would want to do that and go really deep, and it could be as simple as a trivial mistake that costed you $100,000 of your runway money, or it could be something really big that you could have avoided. So in terms of your whole reflection from the last 7 years of journey, what are those pivotal failure moments that you hold very closely onto?
I think in startups, the biggest failures are when you run out of money. And there have been, I think, two instances where we almost ran out of money, and those I don't think there is any other moment in my journey as a founder which I consider like bigger failures than those. All Every other failure is just a minor hiccup in the journey, that like a part of the ups and downs of the product. I think the first time we ran out of money was after the after our time uh, at the NASCOM COE IoT Accelerator, when we were unable to secure our first round of funding, and Binny came to the rescue and we were able to raise capital. Um, our learning then was there was our learning then was just that raising money is hard, and be prepared and always raise money ahead of time. And the second time around we ran out of money was, I think we were in the middle of restructuring our operations, and you know due to some compliance work and some cross border stuff taking a lot of time, we did not have the right corporate structure to accept money in. Uh, and then again, even though we had investors ready to wire us money, we did not have the legal structure to accept that money. Uh, and then again, somehow we figured out how to accept that money. But that again, I considered as a failure. The learning has always been, don't wait till like the last minute to raise capital. Don't be dilution sensitive. Be like runway sensitive. Uh, uh,
All the time.
like
Be runway sensitive all the time, even if you're very big.
Yeah, be runway sensitive. Like a few percent of your company going here and there wouldn't matter as much. And like, but if you don't have money, you don't have the company. Like, owning 5% extra wouldn't really matter.
Right.
5% extra of zero is zero. Uh, so we've just been very conscious about raising way ahead of time than waiting till the last minute just because we'll reach the right milestones in time and be able to raise at a higher valuation, and it's just not worth it.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, last few words on what would you like to say to any entrepreneur, in the wings who's thinking hardware startup is in India right now? What would you say? You want to certainly compress their journey from 7 years to maybe 3 or 4 years, right? I think that's
Yeah.
something that you would want to say. Anything else that you would want to say, like what they should do, what they should think about? I'm sure you were reading a bunch of papers and things when you were thinking and gaining knowledge. So we'll try to kind of compile a list of all of that and share it as part of our show notes so that everybody can see how the journey actually has been. But any thoughts for people who want to build fantastic hardware companies out of India?
I would say, you know, um, so we I think started building from day one, which is good and bad. Um, I believe if we had taken time to plan way ahead in advance, the journey could be shorter. In the sense, what all people do you need, what all resources you need, what milestone do you want to hit. Let us have that plan and raise money, as opposed to let's build it and prove that we can build this and then raise money. Uh, I think it just shortens, just planning and assembling a team and having a deck ready and selling to customers before you can build, just helps you grow faster.
I
So
remember
focus
that
on.
time. I remember that time in 2018 when I came to your lab and you were like just heads down into the thing and I said, hey, we would want to build it. I want to see this working. And it was like one component that you were trying to get organized. I think it was the stirrer, if I
uh,
remember it correctly. And I was looking at, I think, 5 different iterations there lying all around. And the whole place smelled of, cabbage, capsicum, cucumbers, and
okay.
carrots. So so it was, I think, really, but now I can relate to what you're saying, because I think at that point in time, I think I think you didn't want to have a discussion anywhere else in terms of how the company is going to shape up or what you're going to build together, but it was just solving that particular problem at that point in time. You were trying to perfect something, but I can get that, because I think in your mind you were just trying to take it one step at a time,
Right, right.
and that was
And
just one part of the problem. It was just the stirrer problem.
correct, yeah. So I feel that you should sell first. Like as hardware builders, I would say focus on distribution first. Focus on getting your customers first. Focus on figuring out what problem it is that is worth solving before you get heads down into building. Uh, it'll help you raise money faster. It'll help you prove demand faster, which gives you all these resources to now build faster. If you build faster, if you try to build without all of that, it'll just take more time. Is all I would like to say. And yeah, I think that's my advice. Like focus on sales and distributions, and building your website and building your story and building your deck. All of that seems like it's waste of time, but but I think spend 50% of your time there and
Right.
not like 5%.
Right. And what about R&D, right? Like I'm assuming that you at Posha are thinking that you would have like a permanent R&D lab that keeps progressing the company forward into other products, into other technologies that you may need to invent to create that future that you're envisioning, right? I think that is another big thing that, at least I have seen, by, through my career journey in multiple companies, that the amount of investment ahead of time that happens in R&D in companies like Microsoft, Google,
Correct.
it's several years ahead, right?
Hmm.
And at the same time, that keeps the talent engaged, and it
Hmm.
also kind of keeps you prepared for what's going to come next. I think one of the other things that we are obviously seeing unfold and play out right now is this whole AI story, right? And the jury is already out that have we as India missed the AI boat, or
Hmm.
are we too kind of far behind? And do we only play on building wrappers on top of these models, or do we play somewhere else? So I think that work is still in progress, but I think uh, to come back to that same point of as Posha, how critical you feel will R&D continue to be in your game, and would you continue to kind of put in more money in that category, and would you want to do more stuff there? What is that thought process like today?
To build like world changing companies, you need to spend on innovation. Now you can call it R&D, you can call it innovation, you can call it whatever.
Right.
But without having that asset, without having IP as an asset, how can you grow as a company? So absolutely, we need to continue to spend money here. I mean, the biggest companies, Google, Meta, Tesla, even at their scale, they're continuing to invest in R&D. So we
Right.
can never stop investing in innovation.
Right. So are you adding kind of newer kind of talent to your company also as you progress, as you grow, like in those areas?
Uh, so we are continuing to add talent that we need to grow product capabilities. So I told you about generative recipes, for example. So it's not a feature that I need to make live today for my product to succeed. It is a product that it is a feature that will give me dividends over the long term. But we're continuing to invest on it.
Awesome. Awesome. The people who are interested to learn more about Posha today, the product, the consumer feedback, what can you share with them?
I think people can visit our website www.posha.com, and I'm happy to help any fellow founders, especially people who've gone all the way to the end of this episode. Happy to help them out. My email is raghav@posha.com,
Right.
and if you can just write to me with the mention that you heard us at Double Down Podcast, I would be more than happy to help on my email.
Thank you so much, Raghav, for this, and I hope that we can create many more Poshas coming out of India for the world, and then internationally we get the top honors in our products. I think I can just feel the energy. I can just feel the fact that we are very close to getting there, and wishing the entire Posha team all the best. I hope to also get access to one of the Posha devices soon in my kitchen, so I can try to experiment and impress few people around. But thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we're hoping for all the best for Posha and many more interesting achievements from your company going forward. Thank you so much for
Sure.
being here.
Thanks for having me, Chinmaya. It's not every day that a consumer hardware company actually ships. After years of building, today is about something simple: showing up.
Hey, excited for
Yes,
today.
looking forward to the big day. Let's do this. We're not only shipping Posha, we're delivering it ourselves to our users for the very first time.
For us, this isn't just a product. This is years of our work, trust, and belief finally coming.
Hi, Ashi.
Wow,
Oh wow! Welcome.
thank you.
Hi.
Welcome.
Come on, right in.
Excited to be here. We finally have your device ready.
Just click in here.
Yeah. And then you can attach it here. Just put this circular part. Yes.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very easy.
Sync with companion and click sync with device here. Community recipes are recipes cooked with our customers.
That's in B, right?
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yes. Perfect. Cool. We're all prepped up. So we click on all prepped up.
Oh, it started.
It's alive.
You know, when
And how
I
do
told
I
my friends
see
that
it?
we are getting this, they're all standing in line. No, but they haven't yet ordered because they want to see first. So they're like, oh, okay, when are you calling us? When I have a list of people, I have to call.
It's done cooking.
This
You know, the
probably
first
was the
time when we
first-
came to the exhibition, the first time when, if you remember, that's where we placed our order. I had this,
Correct.
and I couldn't believe it. I was like, this doesn't look like it's made by a machine. Okay, Papa, you want to try?
Yeah.
Perfect. This is how I imagine paneer tikka masala to be.
Perfect. How was your onboarding experience?
It was very good.
5-star.
Perfect.
And we
Start.
press start.
Cooking! Ready.
So now once we press start cooking, we can step away.
If there is an issue,
Yes.
whom do we contact?
You can always reach out to our support, which on the mobile app, you can always reach out to support saying, hey, this is what I'm facing, and they'll help you out.
Okay, great.
Cool. I think the food is ready,
Nice.
and I plated it for you.
Okay,
Thank you so much. This is really good.
I've not had pasta in a while. And this is one of the better pastas I'm having.
This is awesome. You should try this.
This is delicious. This is very good. Very good. Everyone should try this. Much better than any Italian restaurant.
Actually.